The Armenian genocide was not a mistake. Holodomor was not a mistake. The final solution was not a mistake. The Great Leap Forward was not a mistake. The killing fields were not a mistake. Name your genocide. It was not a mistake. That includes the great democide of the 2020s. To imply otherwise is to give them the out they are seeking. It was not botched. It was not bungled. It was not a blunder. It was not incompetence. It was not lack of knowledge. It was not spontaneous mass hysteria. The planning occurred in plain sight. The planning still occurs in plain sight. The philanthropists bought the science. The modelers projected the lies. The testers concocted the crisis. The NGOs leased the academics. Scientists fabricated the findings. The mouthpieces spewed the talking points. The organizations declared the emergency. The governments erected the walls. The departments rewrote the rules. The governors quashed the rights. The politicians passed the laws. The bankers installed the control grid. The stooges laundered the money. The DOD placed the orders. The corporations fulfilled the contracts. The regulators approved the solution. The laws shielded the contractors. The agencies ignored the signals. The behemoths consolidated the media. The psychologists slogans. The fact checkers smeared the dissidents. The censors silenced the questioners. The jackboots stomped the dissenters. The tyrants summoned. The puppeteers jerked. The puppets danced. The colluders implemented. The doctors ordered. The hospitals administered. The menticiders scripted. The bamboozled bleated. The totalitarianized bullied. The COVIDians tattled. The parents surrendered. The good citizens believed and forgot. This was calculated. This was formulated. This was focus grouped. This was articulated. This was manufactured. This was falsified. This was coerced. This was inflicted. This was denied. We were terrorized. We were isolated. We were gaslit. We were dehumanized. We were wounded. We were killed. Don't let them get away with it. Courtesy of Mary Fanning, John B. Wells, show I haven't been on in a long time. I'm a retired soldier, special agent, and spy turned whistleblower warrior. Served and sabotaged, rejected and redeemed, failed and forgiven, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, humbled and blessed, repurposed in redemption as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller. Now, your intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and any that choose to join on our long walk to faith and freedom. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Welcome. Wishing you a blessed new year, not necessarily happy, but blessed by God's grace. As your intelligence officer, I'm still serving our country. Your support keeps me independent of corrupt big media. You can donate at the upper right button of the support the show at jeffreyprather.com. My podcasts are on all the platforms and still at 1300 Arizona time, 1 o'clock, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm also on American Media Periscope, Mondays and Wednesdays at 5 p.m. and Brighteon TV mornings at 10 a.m. on Friday mornings. I'm also on CloudTub, Rumble. Please subscribe for my free updates at jeffreyprather.com. There's a wealth of videos, articles, links, options, and answers at patreon.com/JeffreyPrather. I have 3 support levels for every budget. And most of my intel is posted at the cheapest, the 5 curated news stories, the 15 transcripts, the 25 daily training videos. To win, we must join Team America. Team America is a return to our roots via repentance and redemption, resulting in resilience, relying on God and each other, and not corrupt elites, whether Britain or DC. We're in all 50 states. If you're not in the United States, you can join Team Global Freedom, which is now in 24 countries. To begin, neighbor up, team up, and train up. To team up, and join Team America or Team Global Freedom again at jeffreyprather.com. The most committed have a transcendent value system. The most committed value system is God, family, land, clan, tribe, and nation. For spiritual resiliency, I offer you to join us at christchaplaincy.com. To study up my instructional videos on armed and unarmed defense are at jeffreyprather.com in the shop. You can download them and don't send out DVDs anymore. My books are on Amazon, but they're also in the shop. Boys Are Born, Men Are Trained, Initiation, and Chase, fact-based fiction by former DA special agent. For self-defense, go to bujinkanusa.com, BUJINKAN USA.com. For my handgun training, go to warriorschool.com. What we offer can't be bought. It can only be earned. Training and praying together week after week, month after month, year after year builds circles of trust. We have farmers and families, cops and CEOs. I'm cutting back on my classes, courses, intensives, and seminars, but there are always openings for the committed. Many come, few stay. Most talk, few do. Perseverance wins over talent. The most committed wins. Nobody gets out of life alive. Get your head in the fight. Lean in. And also, I'm recommending to take market share away from big box. So if you want to shift your spending dollars to a pro-family, pro-Christian, pro-American supplier that I trust, then just go to patriotswitch.com/Prather, patriotswitch.com/Prather. So as I speak today, the circus in DC is going on. Black Democrat Hakeem Jeffries has more votes than McCarthy does, but it's a ridiculous situation because the left wing and the right wing are the same part of the uniparty albatross that has infiltrated through espionage our country and interdicted through sabotage our government. 2020 was an election stolen, and 2022 in Arizona, America's Alamo was stolen as well. America as a republic is fallen, and it's not a democracy. It was never supposed to be that. It's now a dragocracy. And here's what you are getting. Kevin McCarthy, a World Economic Forum graduate. That is the choice. The other choice, of course, is to have a Dem as Speaker of the House, even though the Rinos have taken the majority. And this is why I'm not on Fox anymore. Hannity was just drilling Boebert, who was saying, hey, this is part of a functioning republic. No, it is not. It is a fallen republic. And so she is wrong about that. But Hannity's got his talking points that he's supposed to bring about. This is why nobody will have me on, because I'll say Antifa.com still goes to whitehouse.gov. And Biden and the doubles are pedophiles. And it's quite clear all of this is true. We are supporting Nazis in Ukraine. America has fallen. But could Jeffries a Democrat, end up as Speaker of the House, even though the GOP took the minority? Well, yes, it could happen because the Rinos love to lose. Now, remember, GOP stands for Grand Old Party. It's the Republican Party that fought the Civil War, where white men died to set black men free, although the original purpose of that war was to preserve the republic against the wishes of the secessionist South, just to be clear. But could it happen that the Democratic Party, the party of slavery that has now fooled blacks, have a Speaker of the House? Well, yes, it could, because in Pennsylvania, the GOP, the Grand Old Party, which you'll never hear them say, because it's the Republican Party. You'll never hear them say Republic either, because that would sponsor the Republican Party. You hear democracy and Dems all the time, but the founders, of course, hated democracy at all times. But the Pennsylvania GOP has just installed a Democrat as House Speaker. If it could happen there, it can happen in DC. And really, there are no real choices in this at all. But the base of the Republican Party in Pennsylvania is largely underrepresented. And the GOP legislators, like the DC GOP legislators, are sold out. I used to do events with Republican Gozar, who would do Fast and Furious events with Vince Cefalu, an ATF whistleblower, and myself. And now I see him talking to AOC. The same that Tom Cotton sold out, a colonel who ran the old guard at Arlington. All of them are sold out. So the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives voted to install a Democratic Speaker of the House. If it happened in Pennsylvania, it can happen in D.C. Democrats don't currently hold the majority in the House. They are the minority party. They won 102 votes. But pending the outcome, the GOP handed the Speaker's gavel to Democrats. In fact, Mark Rossi, a Democrat from Berks County, who is a new Speaker, was nominated by Jim Gregory, a Republican lawmaker. This is the uniparty. There is no difference anymore. And so it's grim, but you have to face reality. I'm an intelligence officer. I'm going to tell you the truth. After the vote, Gregory said he'd be speaking with Rosie for the months about becoming Speaker. Gregory said he was motivated by a fear that the House had become dysfunctional, which seems to mean too partisan. This is politics in Pennsylvania. We just saw something that doesn't happen very often. Now, the good thing about the 7th or 8th vote, the last time I looked, was that they are not backing McCarthy because they are hopefully rejecting the World Economic Forum. But this is no longer a world of nation states. It wasn't always a world of nation states. It used to be city states, Sparta, Athens. It used to be castles and individuals, and the nation state era is ending. It is becoming global transnational non-nation state entities such as the illegal drug cartels and, more importantly, the legal drug cartels, which are tied into big tech and big pharma, which tie into BARDA and DARPA and ARPA as well. So this is what has happened in Pennsylvania, and it could easily happen in D.C. because they are slowly boiling the frog. They are slowly leaving all remnants of a nation state. That's why the borders are always open. If you look at any of the movies, there was a SoundCloud movie out. There's a movie out about looking at TerraVision that Google Earth stole, and probably HawkView was the military thing we used to use. That gets rid of borders. That is what is crucial. And Shapiro wants to, Josh Shapiro is the Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania, and he has just let the drug cartels run wild. Meth and fentanyl are huge, and he now wants to be the governor. And these are puppets controlled by the global cabal. The global cabal is the old families, the Rothschilds, the Red Shields, the Bilderbergs, but also the new elite, which are the new elite of big tech, big pharma, and China is still in there, but not so much a major power. But this is what you're not going to see on the mainstream at all is this Kevin McCarthy, World Economic Forum member, just like Dan Crenshaw, the squeal, is that as well. So there's lots of happening there. But again, these are talking heads. They are not real. They are phonies. And I want to, so that's the title here of what this show is about, is the Rinos Fiddle while China burns. But China is really not burning. This too is an illusion. And I will show that to you here now. And this is, you're seeing in China, these funerals, and they're saying that they are burning people because they can't keep up with all of the COVID deaths. Now, I had Todd Callender on the other day who was saying that the turning up of the radiation for 5G did drop those people for real. Those weren't fake. But this is what's happening now. But this is, again, more of a propaganda film, just like what you're seeing in Congress, the same thing. Supposedly seeing all of these fires, funeral pyres. Well, I have actually probably one of the few people that have actually heard, or I mean, smelled burning dead bodies. There's a sickly sweet odor. It's something you'll never forget. The Chinese custom, as I understand it, is to burn paper representations. That's certainly not what would be required to burn bodies in reality. But this is now the propaganda that they're putting out, just like they are putting this out in Congress. It's the same exact thing. There is no difference here. You need to understand that very, very clearly. So this is a distraction. Again, this is just like, now what they really are doing is they are really certainly building these concentration camps, these FEMA camps all over China. That is most certainly happening. Supposed to look like hospitals, but these are really just white jails being built all over. That is definitely really happening. But this is not what's really going on. They are just faking it. Let me see if I can show you one more thing here that's important. Maybe I've lost it. I'm such a dinosaur when it comes to this stuff. Okay, here we go. So this is the debunking of, now this is from late December, but this is the debunking of that there's total so many bodies that they can't burn them. I had video, but there I lost it someplace in the maelstrom here of videos, because I don't have an engineer on my own show. On my other shows I do. But there's no lines in Shanghai for anything. This is, again, a bait and switch. Just like when I talked about how Pelosi goes to Taiwan, they fire off some missiles, nothing happens. Then she goes to Indonesia to set up more biolabs. It's the same thing that's going on in Congress, pretending that there's a difference between the Rinos and the Dems when there is not. So this is very important to understand and to grasp what is really happening and how this could happen very easily. And it happened in Pennsylvania. There's no reason it can't continue to happen. But the real story, of course, the dangles are to distract you. Remember, if you're going to do an entry, it's speed, surprise, and violence of action. But before that, there's always a distraction. That's whether you cut the lights, throw in a flashbang, bang on a window, bang on a door from behind, something. There's something to take your focus off of the door or the window, or if you're doing dynamic breaching, coming through the roof or so through the ceiling or windows or whatever, just to distract you for a moment. That's what's going on here. That's what you need to understand very clearly. But a couple of breaking stories is that the U.S. military, the DoD, is relying on DIA, who I served with. Got my well, there's my Camp Perry cup up there, but there's my DIA cup there. So, and usually the DIA, and to a lesser extent the NSA, is run by a lot of military folks. So there is more professionalism, but that has been bought off and sold out because Larry Johnson is confirming that the Defense Intelligence Agency is relying solely on Ukraine for intelligence on Russian and Ukrainian casualties. And that being the case, now he says what DIA and CIA ought to be doing is to scour all source intelligence, open source intelligence from foreigners, intelligence produced by foreign governments, reports produced by the U.S. government, electronic intercepts, imagery. It's not really a good analysis of all the intelligence. But what he misses the point there is the CIA was behind the color revolution in Ukraine. That's what they've done many times. And so now that the DIA is relying on Ukraine for intelligence, they're really relying on the CIA. And this goes back to me saying that intelligence is now the fourth branch of government. It really controls everything. Schiff being on the House Intelligence Committee, all of that. That's all where this is going. And that's why I'm always talking about intelligence and I'm always talking about espionage and sabotage, because that's the reality of what's going on now. It's not simply politics, although politics and war are two sides of the same coin. It's espionage and sabotage for interdiction, for infiltration and interdiction. So there's a self-licking ice cream cone here now, is the DIA, which is the smaller dog next to the big dog. Well, the biggest dog is the NSA, but the CIA in this case running the ORCON, which is a caveat, is originator-controlled intelligence coming out of there. So it's just propaganda. It's just psyops. It's just exactly what the Federal Bureau of Information Influence Operations, formerly known as the FBI, does. They are running information influence operations, psyops. They say they only have a foreign information influence operation program, but of course, we know through the whole Trump, Comey, Mueller, Steele, Dachenko fiasco, that they put it overseas to then report it and bring it back. That's what's going on here as well. It's the same pattern of work that we've seen before. So it's, of course, totally useless because the CIA says whatever the CIA wants it to say. But he also says that Russia is firing a staggering 200,000 rounds of artillery rounds per day, while Ukraine is firing between 4,000 and 7,000 rounds. The Ukrainians are quickly burning through their stockpiles of artillery rounds and other ammunition. Well, they've already burned through it. We're supplying that. We're running low on ammunition because we are giving everything to them, because this is Fast and Furious on steroids. Fast and Furious was an international covert gun running operation. Benghazi was an international covert gun running operation. Syria was an international covert gun running operation. Afghanistan turned into an international covert gun running operation. And Ukraine is now an international covert gun running operation because the deep state or double government, part of the global cabal, runs on weaponry, drugs, and people. Where this is now going to, and I will do this in another show, a deep dive on this, is into pedophilia and the normalization through age-gapped love, is what they're going to call this, is the rape of children as they are trannied and dragged and castrated and drugged. That's where all this is heading. That's why you need to wake up and get off the sidelines, because they're coming for our children, and our doorstep is the front line. But the good news is that there is resistance in DC to McCarthy, who was a wet puppet. The good news is that the Ukrainians are losing. That is not the Ukrainian people. I support the patriotic, family-oriented, God-oriented people of Ukraine, just like Mexico, just like America, but not the stooges, the puppeteers controlling the government, by no means. And we know, and I've shown this many times now, that Ukraine is full of Nazis. We are now supporting the Nazis. But the good news here is that the Institute for the Study of War, which is a prestigious American think tank, if there is such a thing, have agreed that up to 400 Ukrainian soldiers a day are being killed and wounded in Bakhmut. Prayers out for them and their families. But I have been saying this all along, and I don't spend a lot of time going into the reporting of the Ukraine war, except to say they are losing. They have never been winning. Everything the propaganda press, mainstream, drive-by, legacy media has told you is a lie. I don't know the name of that black guy who was a Navy chief who supposedly went over there. He had a fake gun. He didn't have his magazine pouches filled. He said he was in combat. Nobody believes him. No veteran believes him. It's all staged. Not that there aren't brave Ukrainians dying, and not that there aren't brave Russians dying. There are certainly on both sides brave patriotic folks dying, although now that the Ukrainians are rounding people up off the streets to enlist when they're not tying them to flagpoles or to street lamps and pulling their pants down to humiliate them, just like the Nazis did, because they are doing that too. And they're not shooting Russian prisoners of war in the legs and then in the heads, which they are doing, and they're not carving into the bodies of raped Ukrainians in the eastern provinces. All these things that they are doing, but they are losing. And Bakhmut is fun. Plus, they've staged, and I've shown how they've staged a lot of this stuff because there were no rats, or there were no predators or birds, vultures around the fallen bodies, and they were all nicely spread out so that you could drive around them. But the Ukrainians are losing, and the Ukrainians are really the puppeteers of the U.S. and NATO, and the U.S. and NATO are really puppeteers of the fourth branch, which is CIA, and the CIA is really puppeteers of DARPA, BARDA, and ARDA, and DARPA, BARDA, and ARDA are really puppeteers of the Rothschilds, the Red Shields, the Bilderbergs, and everybody else. So if the Ukrainians are losing to the Russians, and Putin has said, we will end Rothschild rule, we will not give up our children to these satanic folks. If the Ukrainians are losing, then the WEF and the global cabal and the deep state are losing. And I've been saying that for quite some time. And so this is more evidence of that. Just like when I had Todd on the other day, Todd really amazed me when he said Supreme Court's defended itself through the Brunson case. And then on my show the other day, I showed that the Supreme Court was proactively reaching out to the New York court to tell them why they should not reverse a Second Amendment gun carrying case. And I probably should have covered that today, but I had too much to cover. So you kind of got to watch me 5 days a week. So I confirmed what Todd was saying through the other cases. Then the New York court retorted back to the Supreme Court. So as we may move towards civil war, it looks like the civil war is beginning in the courts, which is not a bad place for all of this to happen, because the Supreme Court is trying to defend itself from having more justices added, or Amy Coney Barrett taken down, or Kavanaugh solaced. Esther Salas being the New York judge who was going to handle the Epstein case, and her son and husband were shot by an attorney who had been in her court dressed up in a FedEx uniform with a FedEx van, who then suicided himself or Scalia'd. So it looks like I've confirmed that hypothesis of Todd, who is a formidable attorney, that the Supreme Court is defending itself and starting to fight back. And so I've never said we were in a civil war. Lots of people have said that. I've said we are in a fourth generation resistance movement in our own country against our own government, while there is a fourth world war, fifth generation biodigital information influence operation war being run. But we could move to civil war, and it's starting to look like that now, where the Supreme Court is starting to fight back. DeSantis, much better than Trump. I know lots of people are going to get mad at me now for daring to speak out about Trump. But Trump is supporting McCarthy for the Speaker of the House. Trump is supporting the WEF, and Trump was supporting Operation Warp Speed, which turned into Warp Drive. And that is not acceptable. Now, I so appreciate everything Trump did. He has been a great ally, but Trump's not the answer. Musk's not the answer. Putin's not the answer. We are the answer. All of them are allies in our long walk to faith and freedom as we go into this long period of the great call, of the great kill-off. This is another Holocaust that we are going through right now, and we will come out on the other side of it. But again, there is breaking news to support my intelligence assessment that it's a biodigital fifth generation war. And that is that what is just breaking today is that the DoD controlled Charlie 19 jabs from the start were under a national security program, and they were, of course, never safe and effective. Now that's been proven. I don't really even spend a lot of time on that. I've had Dr. McCullough on the show, had Dr. Vliet, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Pete Chambers, lots of folks more expert than me talking about that. Interestingly enough, I just saw Dr. McCullough on Tucker the other day talking about Damar Hamlin, the football player. And I thought it was good because Tucker tries to color outside the lines as much as he is allowed. And I think McCullough was trying to do that as well. They're not going to have me on because I'm all way outside the lines. And I'll say, I'll get on there. They don't know what I'll say. I'll say, Antifa.com goes to whitehouse.gov, Biden's a pedo, we're supporting Nazis, and they just have a meltdown. That's why I'm never allowed to be on there anymore. I remember the last time I was on Laura Ingraham and I started to out hold her and she got real quiet because I'm sure somebody was talking into her ear there. But to back up what I've been saying, the whole vaccine approval process was theater. According to congressionally passed statutes, research of active laws and extra details obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, the Department of Defense owns, implements, and oversees the Charlie 19 vaccine program as a countermeasure to foreign attack. Well, foreign attack, of course, that would be the Wuhan, which we've talked about endlessly as well. While the public was bombarded with an orchestrated fear campaign, the U.S. government managed the COVID response as a national security threat. The research and documents were obtained by a former executive of a pharmaceutical contract research organization, CRO Sasha Latayopova, an intense legal researcher, Catherine Wyatt. And I'll see if I can pull this up to show you this as well here. Yes, there we go. There we go. So the undercover operation was orchestrated using three critical legal maneuvers: the Emergency Use Authorization, the EUA, the PrEP Act, and other transactions authority. President Trump declared a public health emergency on March 13th, 2020, under the Stafford Act, putting the National Security Council in charge of the COVID policy. This is according to this real reporter, Latapova. According to Operation Warp Speed reports, the DoD ordered, oversaw, and tightly managed the development, manufacture, and distribution of COVID countermeasures, mainly utilizing the DoD's previously established network of military contractors and consortia. Same thing we've talked about with Harry the Greek reporting on the military having contracts with CONEC and Fiddle, and so does CISA, the Cyber Infrastructure Security Agencies. All of them have been espionaged, infiltrated, so that they could be interdicted, sabotaged. So the Department of Defense and BARDA is the Biomedical Advanced Research Department agency, the counterpart to DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Department agency, Defense Advanced Research Program agency, and HHS ordered all COVID countermeasures, including vaccines, as prototype demonstrations of a large-scale manufacturing, avoiding regulations of transparency under other transaction authority. As prototypes used by the EUA, COVID countermeasures, including vaccines, need not comply with the U.S. for manufacturing quality, safety, and labeling. And this is why Comirnaty never produced, was bluffed to all of our troops. It was never, ever produced, and all of the troops that have been jabbed, that have died, that have been outed, none of this, because this was all done under this National Defense Authority. The implication is that the U.S. government authorized and funded the deployment of non-compliant biological materials on Americans without clarifying their prototype legal status, making the materials not subject to normal regulatory oversight, all the while maintaining a fraudulent pseudo-regulatory presentation to the public, Latipova said. The most incredible fact is that the current laws enacted by the United States Congress appear to make the cover-up actions legal. Under the PHE, medical countermeasures are not regulated or safeguarded as pharmaceutical products. and that's 21 USC 36 360 BBB 3K. USC being US code. I was 21 USC 841A1, possession with intent to distribute. So the American people were led to believe that the FDA, CDC, and the figureheads like Fauci oversaw the COVID-19 vaccine program. Not certainly saying that Fauci is not a monster and Mengelev. No, not that at all. But their involvement was an orchestrated information operation, a PSYOP, which is why I'm always talking about PSYOPs and information influence operations and fifth generation war. And I'm not talking about nuclear war or kinetic war, except when I'm talking about Putin and Russia, who are our allies. All decisions concerning the COVID-19 vaccine research materials acquisition, distribution, and information sharing were tightly controlled by the DOD. And so this is the list here of all of these contracts. Hundreds of COVID countermeasures have been uncovered, many disclosures in redacted form. A review of these contracts indicates a high degree of control by the U.S. government. DOD BARDA specifies the scope of deliverables as demonstrations and prototypes only while excluding clinical trials and manufacturing quality control from the scope of the work approved. And so remember, too, now that 5% of the jabs are responsible for 100% of the deaths, and those were in higher concentrations of Republican areas. Just like in Arizona, they ran out of ballots, Republican ballots, just like they shoot up the Republican baseball game. This is all sniper fire. This is not shotgunning of anything. So why no action by regulators or courts, according to Latipova and Watt? A combination of recently passed legislation and executive orders make it legal to lie. The HHS secretary is accountable to no one if the health national emergency continues to be extended by Congress every 3 months. Go back and remember when Obama, and remember, well, go way back, Obama and Lugar go to Ukraine in 2005 to begin to set up the biolabs, the 46 biolabs that eventually the DOD finally admitted were there. That's why Putin and Russia attacked. And they've now named Fauci, just like DeSantis has named Fauci, and established this medical corps that was accountable to no one except executive authority. Obama did that when he was elected president. So the significant information operation was set in motion the minute COVID-19 hit. U.S. government, the intelligence community, the media, big tech colluded to orchestrate to implement an intense pressure campaign designed to get the vaccine legally signed under the Emergency Use Authorization Act while vilifying dissenting doctors and viable alternative treatments. So a vaccine to receive designation under the EUA, there can be no other known treatments or cure. Therefore, many proven treatments such as ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine were blacklisted in the media and dismissed as horse dewormers. Well, they are. I've dewormed my horse many times, but they also work great. But this fits in exactly with the intelligence assessment. This intelligence solidifies my intelligence, and really anybody who's awake there is aware of this, although the mainstream still is not. I have chaplaincy, senior chaplains who are not seemingly aware of really what's going on in that the entire medical establishment has been collapsed and corrupted as in the days of Noah. But I'll keep saying it. Hopefully people will pay attention. But they mention eminent COVID treating doctors such as Peter McCullough, Pierre Corey have faced unprecedented attacks on their medical credentials. That's certainly true. There are, of course, those who say that McCullough had some investments in Paxlovid and stuff. And again, Trump, Flynn, McCullough, none of them are saints. I don't expect them to be saints. I expect them to be allies, and at times temporary allies, but certainly McCullough is being proven to be a real ally here. The other day, I had a paper where this was the paper he was talking about on Tucker was he was on doing a paper showing how all these athletes who are in top physical condition have this heart condition. Now, George Webb was kind of like, well, how do you make this jump? But again, I think exposing it to the larger media presence, which Tucker is a lone voice of truth on Fox, trying to color outside the lines, trying to get out as much truth out as possible, is very important. And so again, just as we go into these dark times, just existence is resistance. And that's important to understand. And so these are the supporting documents for what I was just talking about. They are now up on my patreon.com. So that's Jeffrey Prather, along with many other useful links, because I only post useful links. But this list contains all the Charlie 19 related contracts obtained via the FOIA requests and Security Exchange Commission filings, HHS reading room files, all of these. And these are coming from the KEI online.org as well. You can go there as well. That's where I'm getting this from. Advanced Technology International underlying contracts to execute COVID-19 contracts on behalf of the federal government. This is contracts. This is just like all the patents that are out there. And there are so many of them. And as you look, you see DOD, HHS, BARDA, ASPR. I don't even know what ASPR is. BARDA, of course I know. HHS, DOD, Eli Lilly, all of this, just hundreds of them. Hundreds of and almost all of these come from 2020. They're not older than 2020. All of this is authorized right there in the March. Looks like March is the earliest where all of this is coming through. I mean, it is a stunning amount of federal contracts of money. And again, this is the cartels came about to bring about marijuana and then cocaine and then heroin and then fentanyl, although fentanyl is more, I assess more as just a direct bioweapon from China through Mexico to look like a drug. But again, just like the Mexican government had to deal with La Familia cartel and the DEA had to deal with Sinaloa cartel, the U.S. government has now been taken over by the legal cartels and by the means, by the vector of all of these jabs. So we're existing in a country that is run by pimps and pushers and pedos pushing all of this, and they want to take control of our kids so that they have an never-ending market, because America and Europe are awash in drugs at this point. So that's why they're running people now, because they were so successful at the drug trade. But this is just a hugely extensive list. And now I've just gotten through America and going into Europe, Australia, Brazil, Canada. And again, what's significant about this is that the CONEC contracts and the CITO contracts are international as well to control the voting systems. And all this is done through biodigital means. And that's why they want to get everybody jabbed so they have better control, the better to control everybody. That is why this is so important to understand. So I know it's a bit of a deep dive today, but it's really important to be aware of. And the other thing to be aware of here is, and so again, I reference my show with Todd the other day, which was my first show of the year, and I really was amazed. And as far as I'm concerned, I've confirmed his hypothesis through my own intelligence. And he talked about how remember in China when the police and the officials were just falling down. And so some people thought that was fake. I'm one of the thought that was fake. It was staged. He said no, because they were turning up the 5G, having been jabbed, they could turn that up and they could focus that. Now Congress has passed legislation for neurological wounding through directed energy weapons. And that's the other piece of this very sophisticated weaponry. So remember, when the Afghans were ISIS and Al Qaeda were being bombed by Americans, they thought they were death rays because they couldn't see the bombs because the bombs were dropped from such a high altitude. You don't really see, it's not like phasers in Star Trek. You don't really see all of this. But in a 2022 paper published online in May at the NIH, National Institute of Health.gov, Nature Public Health Emergency Collection. This paper is by Avakyan and Baranova, Microwave Emissions and the Problem of Modern Viral Diseases. Over the scientific paper, medical paper, over the past 30 years, the anthropogenic electromagnetic background has increased 100 times due to the development of cellular mobile communications and computerization. The predicted interaction of natural and anthropogenic sources of microwaves sharply increases their negative impact on the ecological situation. A particular concern is the active spread in recent years of the new 5G communication standard. In the future, it is the development of the most dangerous millimeter range in our country. Energy from the environment and the microwave range can cause unexpected behavior in the DNA of viruses. The main source of microwave radiation are the increasing anthropogenic electromagnetic background, mainly due to the operation of cellular radio networks in the microwave range, microwave EHF, SHF, and UHF radiation of the Earth's ionospheres of frequencies of 300 to 0.3 gigahertz. So if you have read my book Initiation, or if you've been to Initiation, I'm always talking about learning to see the halos, the electromagnetic bioluminescence. You can develop your inner technology. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you can hear these frequencies. Music was not put at the natural Earth frequency. That's what the tribes really mean when they're saying Mother Earth and Father Sky. When astronauts go into space, it's not lack of gravity that hurts them. It's being away from the electromagnetic field. That's why in the jeffreyprather.com biz page, you can buy the magnetic blankets and you can buy the books that will tell you about this. This is the other side of all of that. We were never meant to receive all the radiation that we are receiving. So real manifestations of viral pandemics, such as the Spanish flu, can be associated with the impact of radio waves, which were observed in the second decade of the 20th century with a peak in 1918 to 1920. Based upon our hypothesis, this could have been facilitated not only by the rapid development of radio communications themselves, but also by the increase in the number of large geomagnetic storms recorded by magnetic observatories. So, we live in the country and we live a pretty healthy, lifestyle, gluten-free, and we do lots of intermittent fasting and all of that. Although I am, because I'm so broken, I am on meds. I'm always trying to get off and lessen the meds through inner technologies and do a lot of that. Siddha Veda, Ayurveda. But the point here is when we really notice that, when we go someplace into a big city, we really notice the electromagnetic poisoning. And so until recently, there was no clear understanding of bioenergetics, what is the mechanism of the impact of external electromagnetic fields on the body. So where two or more, as Yeshua says, is there's a field between us. In Bujinkan, I'm always talking about the Ma'ai. Hatsumi Soke always talking about the space in between. In Inde, it's called the Yi, the power. And medicine man, it's called the Yin, an empowered one. Yeshua, the next chosen, I think, is talked about where he goes, who touched me? And this is where the Shroud of Turin and other relics become important, is because Yeshua feels the power go out of him when she touches the hem of his robe. And so there is a current flow. And this is what, when we're doing kinetic prayer, what we are trying to access, to open up to. So it is relevant to consider the assumption formulated 60 years ago by Albert von Szent-Györgyi, a Nobel laureate in physiology, that interactions between molecules can take place without such bodily contact, either through energy bands or through the electromagnetic field, which thus appears with water and its structures as the matrix for biological reactions, which is why baptism is so important. When I do baptism, like, it's not the water outside, it's the water inside you that's changing. There's been studies that show if you think positive thoughts, hate, or love, Jesus, God, into water that's then frozen in ice cubes, you get symmetry. If you think hate, Lucifer, evil, death, you get dissymmetry and darkness in these same frozen ice. So it can be affected by our thought patterns. That's Schrodinger's cat. That's what that is all about. So the publications from 94 to 2008 noted the importance of the mechanics of solar terrestrial relations with the performance of model calculations of microwave radiation fluxes during the period of solar flares and geomagnetic storms. So when there's solar storms, it affects us because we are luminous beings. We emphasize the proposed new factor in the physics of solar terrestrial relations by considering processes in the lower atmosphere and biophysics, taking into account microwave fluxes of ionosphere origin and geomagnetic activity on the weather climatic characteristics and the biosphere. So I hope you're following this, because I'm finding this fascinating. So I've had, I see the chemtrails all the time. I have had Dean Wigington on the show. I'll have him on again. And I've recently seen chemtrails that had dark edges around the white in the sun. Of course, a regular contrail should just disappear. The chemtrails stay, and they crosshatch. It's very obvious once you pay attention to it. And I was told about this years ago, and I kind of poo-pooed it. I was told by a DA Special Agent pilot, and then later on I was contacted by another DA Special pilot and said, "Oh no, this is real." So this starts to make sense of how the chemtrails overlay with the DO and 5G once you've got the jabs and boosters operating systems inside you. So we're starting to understand the enemy order of battle and their weaponry. And the first rule of war is to understand when you're in one. The second rule of war is to understand what kind you're in so you respond properly. So with the development of cellular telephony, the overall level of microwave background in the habitat is rapidly increasing. In connection with the new 5G communication standard, it is planned to use the millimeter radiation range actively in our country in the near future. It's unknown the small base stations of modular cellular mobile communication systems also emit within the microwave frequency of 0.7 times 10 hertz to 3.5 times 10 hertz. That's kind of getting over my head there. But again, academician V.A. Chereznov noted that since the 1970s, there has been an increase in the number of viral diseases. One of the reasons for this antibiotic therapy, which causes the death of bacteria that counteract the spread of viruses in the intestine. Since 76, a change in behavior of the average global temperature on the Earth's surface has been recorded, with its transition to an almost continuous increase, as well as similar behavior on the surface temperature of the ocean. These temperatures continue to rise and constitute just the phenomenon of modern global warming. In our papers, based on comparison of variations in global cloud cover recorded by the International Satellite Cloud Climatology Project, we proved the relationship between the prevalence of total cloudiness and the intensity of the microwave radiation flux of the Earth's ionosphere generated when it is disturbed by factors of increased solar geomagnetic activity and increased flux of shortwave ionizing the upper atmosphere, solar radiation, and quasi-periodic intrusions into the ionosphere. So this is tied in. This is the great dimming that Dean talks about. And this is why things are heating up. And certainly I've noticed living in Arizona for so long that it has gotten hotter, but not just that, but the sunlight was actually very harsh. And I've spent so much of my time out, all through North, Central, and South America. And so I'm used to harsh conditions, but it was almost burning. And so this starts to make sense. Now, I'm always saying also that it's not about climate change and it's not about global cooling or warming. It's about desertification and the fact that the creator designed the creation to have huge herds of four-legged hooved creatures of the creator's creation moving across the land, eating the grass, making little hooved dents where there'd be puddles and shadows, pooping out seeds and spreading grasses. That's why the Wovoka who dreamed of Yeshua, the ghost dancer, saying the buffaloes will come back, the grass will come back. And that's why that is so important. I still stand by that, that we don't have those huge herds. The system was designed by that. And the arrogance of scientists who really understand nothing are messing with the DNA. That, to me, is the true abomination of desolation, which I talked about in Branson, which is the real translation from the Hebrew. If you look at the Matthew Gospel, Matthew was originally written in Hebrew. Just talked about this on my last chaplaincy sermon. You can find that Christ Connection Chaplaincy on Facebook. And I'll get a transcript up at the mid-level, $15 level on Patreon soon. But this is all the pieces are fitting together on what has been done to us. And we have to take action on this. Nobody is coming. So their study showed that all conclusions about the unexpected behavior of virus DNA are quite explicable within the known process of interaction of electromagnetic microwave radiation with the water-containing medium of a living organism, which have already been quantitatively considered, taking into account the Rydberg excitation in a number of biophysical applications. We explain the phenomenon of viral DNA synthesis by the fact that it can be supported by the stimulating effect of microwave irradiation on the association of water molecules and biopolymers. Energy from the environment in a microwave range can cause all the effects observed in the experiments. So this is confirming all of our observations, but putting this into a context that we now clearly understand. And so they say that it was noteworthy that 100 years ago during the Spanish flu pandemic, there was an asymmetry conducted in the sunspots from the middle of the first half, 1913 to 1919. And that may have accounted for the viral pandemic influenza as well. There's also those who think that the Spanish flu broke out in Kansas in the Army, and that it was, again, a covert bioweapon. So the conclusions of their work on the prevalence of the role of environmental pollution by electromagnetic radiation and fields as the main factor affecting the incidence and mortality rate from COVID-19 are based on the data analysis of testing and mass deployment of 5G networks. At the same time, objects of the NATO communication structure within the headquarters in Belgium stand out, where there was a particularly high mortality rate from COVID by mid-2020, an order of magnitude higher than in Belarus, Iceland, Malta, Russia, and Slovenia. So again, they are screw taping themselves. In a specially organized discussion, domestic specialists, experts from relevant state commissions spoke out against a simplified approach to the implementation of 5G standard in Russia. It emphasized that electromagnetic fields of radio frequencies of non-thermal intensity are an irritant of the nervous system. As for protection, this is only screening of the room. It is the absorber that is important. It should not be surprising that every year 300,000 people of the working population die due to oncology. This is largely a consequence of such exposure. So the conversation should last no more than 5 minutes, and in a day, no more than a half an hour. So we're all being overly irradiated. More than 200 million 5G mobile communication installations are already operating in the world, of which more than 60% are in China. Of course, China has the massive deaths. That is the habitat of almost every third family. And Russia, by 2024, is planning to deploy full-scale 5G networks. The research results presented confirm that a periodic increase in the active viability of viruses can be described in terms of the physics of the interaction of microwave electromagnetic radiation with water-containing biosolutions and associated with an increase in the microwave flux of the environment. Therefore, during a pandemic, it is desirable to protect patients at risk from over irradiation pollution. And so you can do that, they're saying, by treating external and external walls of hospitals, kindergartens, schools, nursing homes, wearing special two-layer clothing, drastically reducing the amount of time you use your mobile phone, using only a headset, not surfing the internet, not allowing your battery to charge in your home. Don't put your phone next to you at night. And of course, as I'm always saying, get your Faraday bags and get the ones on my site, because those are the good guys. Those are produced by the good guys. Some guys supply Blantifa as well. So this is I know this is a deep dive, but I'm always going to tell you the truth, and I'm always going to tell you really what's going on. And so again, there's going to be a lot of deaths from this. There already have been. Ed Dowd, a former BlackRock portfolio manager, says the same thing, that COVID shots are causing youth democide. He was on Bannon, I guess, and said the millennial age group, 25 to 44, experienced an 84 increase in excess mortality in the fall. It's the worst ever excess mortality in history. Dowd said that there were 61,000 excess deaths from the shot by the fall of 2022, the equivalent of the Vietnam War deaths. And he estimates 2 to 3 million Americans have already been disabled by the shots. In 2019, the average lifespan of Americans of all ethnicities was nearly 79 years. By the end of 2021, life expectancy had dropped to 76, a loss of nearly 3 years. At the end of August 22, we also experienced a life expectancy just dropped precipitously during 2020. So this is really extraordinary. This is a great kill-off. But again, it's trying to be done without inflection points. No planes flying into buildings, no days of infamy, none of that. And Ed Dowd is the author of Cause Unknown, Brighteon Books. He's saying that there are about 2,500 excess deaths and 5,000 excess disability victims due to COVID-19 vaccines. It means on average about 7,500 Americans are removed from the potential labor pool daily. And so what this means is America is suffering the early stages of a decivilization event, an extinction level event. And I was on a show a while back with, forget who I was guesting on, I was with Todd again, I think. I said, yeah, we're in an extinction level event. I agree, but we will survive. Some will survive. The herd is being culled. Don't be in the cull. So that this term, decivilization, refers to the dismantling of the critical complex pillars of a modern advanced civilization, rendering it unable to function. And that is very true, which is why you need to start your victory gardens, why you need to neighbor up, team up, why you're going to survive without the modern conveniences if you are smart. As John Wayne said, life is hard. It's harder if you're stupid. So things are going to get really bad. This is the year for Europe, according to friend and fellow veteran Michael Young, and the following year after that, maybe America. But the great kill-off is already happening, but people are becoming aware of it. That's why it's so important to pay attention to all of this. That's why it's so important to oppose McCarthy as Speaker. all of that. And one last thing I'll cover is that you probably did hear about the Times Square machete attacker on New Year's Eve in New York, who stabbed two New York cops while screaming Allah Akbar. And the New York intelligence police is busy saying, well, it's not the Islamic religion. It's just that, he wanted to suicide by a cop. Well, his brother's a Marine. He didn't act like suicide by a cop. But the important inflection point here is 20 years later, after 9/11, after New York rejected JTTFs and did their own thing and were back in their police, they're back to, oh, well, Islam is a religion of peace and it's not about that. It's suicide by cop, just like, I forget his name, the Army psychiatrist major who jumped up on a table and was shooting his own troops, and the Army did nothing about that. The PSYOP is complete. That's what the intelligence agencies are really doing, is psyoping everyone so that they believe everything. And I hear this from people who used to like me all the time. This is very grim. But even though it is grim, and we are not always winning, we will win. But winning is difficult, demanding, and always expensive in blood and treasure. Tyrants always fail. Tyranny always falls. Graphene is not in our DNA, at least those not jabbed, but freedom is. But freedom is never given. It is earned. It is fought for. It is won. It is taken. So remember to take it.